19th verse of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And this verse says, Yasya sarve samaramba kama sankalpa varjita janagni dagda karmanam tamahur pandita buddha. This verse says, one is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every endeavor is devoid of the desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavani Paskatya Disatarine. So purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. One is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. Purport. Only a person in full knowledge can understand the activities of a person in Krishna consciousness. Because the person in Krishna consciousness is devoid of all kinds of sense gratificatory propensities, it is to be understood that he has burned up the reactions of his work by perfect knowledge of his constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is actually learned who has attained to such perfection of knowledge. Development of this knowledge, of eternal servitorship to the Lord, is compared to fire. Such a fire, once kindled, can burn up all kinds of reactions to work. So this is an important verse because we can understand how important knowledge of servitorship to the Supreme Lord is. It's only by this process of devotion, under the instruction of a bona fide spiritual master, that one can become free of their karma. Karmani nirdahanti chabakti bhajam. Brahma Samhita explains that only Krishna can free one from the reactions to their past karma. One must be freed in order to engage in the process of devotional service. Devotional service starts from the point that we become liberated from the desire to control and enjoy the material nature. Yesam tvantagatam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandva mohanir mukta bhajante mam dritavrataha. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful reactions are completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service. So Srila Prabhupada says that those eligible for elevation to the transcendental position are mentioned in this verse. For those who are sinful, atheistic, foolish, and deceitful, it is very difficult to transcend the duality of desire and hate. So in the previous verse, Prabhupada already said, or Krishna already said, Ichadvesa samuttena dvandva mohena bharata sarvabhutani samoham sargayanti parantapa. Krishna says to Arjuna, O scion of Bharata, O conqueror of the foe, all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arisen from desire and hate. Icha and Dvesa. We have material desires, and whoever obstructs our material desires, attaining our material desires, we hate them, or become jealous, or become upset with them. So, the real position of a living entity is to be subordinate to the Lord. This is pure knowledge. But when one is deluded into separation from the Lord, they lose this pure knowledge, or it becomes obscured in their mind, and at that point one becomes controlled by the illusory energy, or Maya, and cannot understand the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The illusory energy is manifested in duality of desire and hate. So due to desire and hate, the ignorant person wants to become one with the Supreme Lord and envies Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So pure devotees who are not deluded or contaminated by desire and hate can understand that Lord Shri Krishna appears by his internal potencies, but those who are deluded by duality and nescience or ignorance think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is created by material energies. This is their misfortune. Such deluded persons symptomatically dwell in dualities of dishonor and honor, misery and happiness, woman and man, good and bad, pleasure and pain, etc. And they're thinking always, this is my wife, this is my house, I am the master of this house, I am the husband of this wife. So these are the dualities of delusion. Those who are so deluded by dualities are completely foolish, and therefore they cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is a serious explanation here of the dilemma of every living entity that is in the clutches of the illusory energy. So the symptom is that such persons are always troubled and confused by these dualities of life. Only those persons who have passed their life or have lived their lives practicing the regulative principles of spiritual life, who have acted piously and who have conquered sinful reactions, can accept devotional service and gradually rise to the pure knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, rising to that point requires training under the tutelage of a bona fide spiritual master. And one has to be trained in the process of devotional service so that they can gradually rise to the pure knowledge that we are subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, subordination to God is a very difficult thing for most people to accept, because the symptom why we're in this world is we revolted against God, and we don't want to be subordinate. We want to be the dominator and controller, if not of everything, at least a part of everything. And we strive to dominate and control, and because of that there's a constant struggle for existence against the laws of material nature that obstruct us, against other people that are competing with us for the same thing, and it becomes a very unsavory atmosphere of competition for limited material resources. And in that competition one is incessantly overwhelmed with desires and with hatred, or let's say animosity toward anything or anyone that obstructs their attaining their goals. So Krishna says here that one must rise above this struggle for existence by being trained in devotional service. Devotional service is predicated on number one point, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we are eternally subordinate to the Lord. In fact, that is our natural position, to be subordinate, and secondly, to take instructions from the Lord. Those two things are part of our eternal nature. When we act separate from that nature or contrary to that nature, we immediately encounter struggle and opposition and obstacles, and due to that we develop these insatiable desires and unending hatred or animosity. So to be eligible for elevation to the transcendental position requires that we transcend the dualities of desire and hate. Now, how do you transcend duality? You have one fixed goal. That's how you transcend it. And that fixed goal should be to please Krishna through our activities, thoughts, and everything. In fact, there's a verse that says, Kayana Manasa Buddha Indriyar Kevalar Indriyar Api Yogina Karma Kurvanti Sangam Tyakvatma Sudaye. Yogis who use everything in their life, mind, intelligence, everything, only for purification, are genuine yogis. In other words, they don't use their mind, their intelligence, their senses for any other reason than to engage in the service of the Lord and by that become purified. So that's their only purpose. And then it says, yukta karma phala tyakva. So by giving up, great souls who give up attachment to all fruits of labor, who live without such attachment, Sangam Santim Apnoti Naistikim, they attain unadulterated peace. Ayukta Kama Karanina Falosakti Nibadyate. But those who remain attached to the fruits of their activities, not wanting to offer them to God, they become entangled in the law, by the laws of karma, into the cycle of birth and death repeatedly. So this is wisdom. In fact, it says again in the 5th chapter that yoga yukta visuddhatma vijitatma jitendriya sarvabhutatma bhutatma kurvanapi nalipyate. So those who are engaged in devotional service, yoga yukta visuddhatma, they are purified. Visuddha Atma, their soul, their body, everything is purified. Vijitatma, and because they have become self-controlled, and Jitendriya, by controlling or conquering their senses. Vijitatma. Sarva Bhuta Bhutatma, in other words, they are friendly and compassionate to every living entity. That's the symptom that they've gained control of their mind and their senses and purified. They're friendly to every living entity. Kurvanapi nalipyate, they are never, although doing all kinds of activities, they are never entangled by the laws of material nature. So this is called Yoga Koshalam, the art of working without any entanglement in the material world. And it is genuinely an art, or that's why they use the word koshalam. To be able to work, and how does one work? Karmani avadhikaraste mafale sukadachana makarma fala hetubur mate sangastu akarmani. One has the right to perform activities that are prescribed, but one does not have the right to enjoy the fruits of action, nor should one consider themselves the cause of the action, and one should never be attached to not doing their duty. So this is a very, very wonderful verse in the 2nd chapter. So there are 3 things. There are prescribed duties in life according to how we're situated in the Varnashrama system. There are 4 Varnas and 4 Ashramas. So the Varnas are Brahmachari and Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. Those are the spiritual orders, and the social orders, or Varnas, are Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras. Now, each one of those orders has specific prescribed duties. Someone can be married and at the same time have the quality of either a Brahmana, a Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Sudra. So you have spiritual duties and you have social or material duties. And if one performs them simultaneously, they become elevated spiritually. If one just performs their social duties, okay, that's better than nothing, and that helps people gradually come to see the importance of also accepting the spiritual duties. So, there are 3 considerations: prescribed duties or work, there's capricious work, and there's inaction. So prescribed work are duties enjoined in terms of one's acquired modes of nature. So Brahmanas are in the mode of goodness, Kshatriyas are mixed modes of goodness and passion, or more passion, and Vaishyas are passion and ignorance, and Sudras are complete ignorance. Not that there's anything wrong with any of those. The whole Vedic system is designed to elevate people gradually from from the influence of all those modes. In fact, Krishna tells Arjuna, Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nishtraigunya Bhavarjana, Te Dvandva Mohanir Mukta, Jantimam Dritavrata. He says, Arjuna, the Vedas, especially the three Vedas, the Rig, Sama, and Yajur Vedas, deal with the three modes of material nature. What's prescribed or what is recommended by reading those Vedas is how to obtain desirable things from the Devatas to make life more comfortable. But he says, Nistraigunya Bhavarjana, but you should rise above these modes, Arjuna. That's not exactly the purpose of life. Krishna gives this enticement to materialistically inclined people so that they will be able to satisfy their material desires easily through performance of Vedic sacrifices under the direction of bona fide brahmanas. But at the same time, the brahmanas, if they're bona fide, just like Krishna has explained to Arjuna, they will also explain that this is attaining material desires is not the real purpose of the Vedas. The real purpose is to please Lord Krishna and become purified by the mercy of the Lord of these material desires, so that you try and strive for spiritual perfection. The material perfection is going to always be imperfect. It's never going to be complete, because as long as we have material attachments, we get old, we get sick, and we die, and then we start all over again based on our previous karma. So it's an unending cycle without reaching the real purpose of life, which is to become fully cleansed of all material desires. Just like that verse says, karmani vadikaraste, or as Krishna says later on in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, yet karosi yad asnasi yad johosi dadasi yet tapasyasi konteya tat kurusva madarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you give away in charity, and whatever austerities that you perform, do it as an offering to me. In other words, if we're going to eat something, patam pushpam phalam toyam yome bhakta prayachati. First we should prepare it to offer it to Krishna. And according to Krishna's taste, he says, patram pushpam phalam toyam, offer me a leaf, water, fruit, and flower, and I'll accept it. So that eliminates many other things that are unacceptable, like meat, fish, eggs, and so forth. And he says, offer it to me. If you're going to do some charity, offer it to me. If you're going to do some work, also work for me. Come to the temple and do some seva. If you're going to, whatever you do it for me. And then he says, Subha subha phaler evam moksha sikarma bandhana sanyasya yoga yuktatma vimuktamam upaisyasi. If you do these things for me, then subha subha phaler evam. Thus, you'll become free from subha and asubha, all desirable results and all undesirable results. Because if we want something material that's desirable, even if we perform yagyas, Vedic yagyas to get it, we have to continue to take birth and death to enjoy those things. But if we want Krishna, we are liberated from that cycle of birth and death. So he's saying, by doing everything for me, you become liberated from good and bad results, because both results are entangling. So, and he says, Subha subha phalerava moksyasi karma bandhana. In other words, you become free from the karma band, from the entanglement of materially inspired activities. Sanyasya yoga yuktatma. By this principle of renunciation, by engaging in my devotional service, one renounces the material goal of life and engages in a devotional service for the spiritual goal of life, which is to please the senses of Krishna. The material goal of life is to please our own senses in a selfish way. The spiritual goal of life is to please the senses of Krishna. And then Krishna offers back our offering as his prasad. And that completely satisfies us. In the same way that we water the root of the tree or the plant, and then the whole plant is watered. But if we try and separately water each leaf or each branch, it's very probable that the plant will die. So by watering the root, the whole plant is watered. In the same way, by serving Krishna, all our goals in life are served without separately endeavoring for them. We have to endeavor, but that endeavor is supported by Krishna when our goal is to please the Lord first and accept His prasad. So, this is more clearly explained where in Bhagavad Gita, where it says, Shruti vipattipanante yada stasya sinishchala samada vachala buddhis tada yogam avapsyasi. Krishna tells Arjuna in the 53rd verse, the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, when your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness. So now he's talking about flowery language of the Vedas. And what is that? Well, he explained that a little earlier also, where the Vedas make a lot of promises of material benefits. In the 42nd and 43rd verse, Yam imam pushpitam vacham pravadanti avipaschitaha vedavada rata parta nanyat astiti vadina karmatmana swargapara janma karma phala pradam kriya visesha bahulam bhagaiswarya gatim prapti. Krishna says, men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, result in good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there's nothing more than this. So this is a type of what you would call well, you could call it low-class spiritual activity, where one performs the Vedic rites, okay, but they're only interested in getting material benefits from them, and they don't want to hear about how to purify themselves of those material desires. So they end up in what's called the Ferris wheel syndrome. The Ferris wheel, you sit, you take your seat, and then it goes up, and you feel very happy. You're up on top, you have a beautiful view. Then it comes down, and you're waiting to go up again. So what happens when people are attached to the Vedic promises of material success, and they get the results, they simply go up and down in the material world. From becoming a third-class prisoner, they become a first-class prisoner. Then they come back again and become a third and fourth, fifth-class prisoner. But they're always a prisoner of birth, death, old age, and disease. This is called the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas. So people in general are not very intelligent, and due to their ignorance, they are mostly attached to material results that are recommended in the three Vedas, the Rig Veda, Samaveda, and Yajur Veda. They do not want anything more than sense gratificatory proposals for enjoying life in heaven, where wine and women are available and material opulence is very common. So what is the problem with this? It's not that one is condemned to be poor or live in the street. No. Krishna will provide everything we need. As he says later on in the 3rd chapter, he says, Saha yagya prajasristva pura vacha prajapati ananya prasav visyadvam esavostristakamaduk. He says, in the beginning of creation, and this is Krishna speaking, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, be thou happy by these yagyas, or sacrifices, because their performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. So, the purpose of this Karma Kanda section of the Vedas is not simply that we will continually enjoy material facilities and thereby stay within the realm of karmic activity and therefore never become liberated from birth and death. No, the purpose is that you can achieve your material desires easily so that you gain much more time and composure in order to engage in spiritual activities. If you're struggling always just to make ends meet, due to anxiety and other considerations, you don't have the equilibrium of the mind to engage in spiritual activities. But if that struggle becomes a lot easier by pious activities, then you do have the ability to allocate serious time for spiritual elevation. Therefore, those enticements of the Vedas in the Karmakanda section are offered to people, but unless one has a bona fide brahmana helping and teaching what the real goal of the Vedic knowledge is, one will become simply a client of a businessman called a false brahmana, and he'll just keep enticing people with material benefits. In other words, it's called puja for pay. Rather, the brahmana should do exactly what Krishna does to Arjuna. He says, Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. Arjuna, don't stay mired in this cycle of birth and death due to material attachment, due to a low standard of happiness called material happiness. Just use these Vedic yagas to satisfy your material desires, but gradually diminish those desires by cultivating spiritual life simultaneously. And through the cultivating spiritual life begins by hearing and chanting. Hearing the Bhagavad Gita on a regular basis, and then repeating it, discussing it, thinking about it, and chanting the name of God, and associating with Krishna and his devotees. Gradually, one reorients the way one thinks about the purpose of life. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, first chapter, 32nd to 35th verse, in a purport, he says that Arjuna indicates that Krishna should understand what will satisfy Arjuna's senses. Arjuna refers to Krishna as Govinda. But Govinda is not meant for satisfying our senses. If we try to satisfy the senses of Govinda, however, then automatically our own senses are satisfied. Materially, everyone wants to satisfy his own senses, and he wants God to be the order supplier for such satisfaction. But the Lord will satisfy the senses of living entities as much as they deserve, but not to the extent that they may covet or desire. But when one takes the opposite way, namely, when one tries to satisfy the senses of Govinda without desiring to satisfy one's own senses, then by the grace of Govinda, all desires of the living entity are satisfied. So, this is real knowledge. This is what we're doing in the temple. We're working day and night to please the senses of Govinda or Krishna. And Krishna is reciprocating very nicely. We have a very simple but productive life, working honestly, and at the same time becoming purified gradually and step by step by having a balanced material life, by engagement in spiritual activities in the temple. And the foremost spiritual activity is hearing and repeating, and then remembering, and then being trained to be able to actually engage in deity worship, padasevanam, serving the lotus feet of the Lord. And while we're doing that, there's archanam, the process of worship, pancha trikibiti, and there's vandanam, choice prayers, glorifying the Lord, and there's sakyam, that is creating friendship or developing friendship and attachment to the Lord, and atmanivedanam, surrendering everything. So archanam, vandanam, sakyam, dasyam, and dasyam becoming the eternal servant of the Lord, or coming to our real position as subordinate to the Lord. So, Krishna says, Tyakva karma phala sangam, nityatripto nirasraya, karmani apipavrito pi, naiva kinchit karoti sa. Abandoning all attachment to the results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent, the devotee performs no fruitive action, no selfish acts, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings. So this is actual freedom from bondage of actions, from the karma band. And it's possible only through Krishna consciousness. Just like we see Arjuna, he became free of all the reactions to his activities. And his activities were horrible. During the 18-day war, Kurukshetra, he killed millions of people, not just a few. He killed millions. Over 620 million people died in 18 days. So, many of them were normal soldiers, but there were also present Maharatis, people who had the strength and technical skill, the strength of elephants and a technical skill that far surpasses the United States Army. They had bows and arrows, but their arrows were atomic weapons infused with mantra. Therefore, Arjuna could kill millions of people, and he did. Not only he killed Bhisma Pitamaha, Dronacharya, Karna, he killed millions of soldiers on that battlefield in the 18 days. And there were other Maharatis also. He had his brothers Yudhisthira, he had Bhima, Sahadev, Nakula. Each one of them was a Maharati, especially Bhima. Bhima killed many, many millions, even more than Arjuna. So, and on the other side there were also Maharatis. Karna was a Maharati, and Duryodhana was a Maharati, and of course Bhisma Pitamaha, who was invincible. He was not even an ordinary human being. He was a Devata. He's the son of Ganga Devi. So he was invincible. The only reason he was killed by Arjuna was very respectful to him, and during the evening time after the battle was over, the enemy soldiers could fraternize if they wanted to. And Arjuna went and asked Bhima how he could kill him. And Bhisma explained to him, yes, my dear son, this is the way you're going to kill me. You put this, what's the name of that person? The girl that became, her name was Amba, who became, I forget who she became, but she took birth, and he said, you keep her in front, even though she looks like a man in this life. In previous life she was a woman. Sikandi, and I can't kill women. Brahmins, you're not supposed to kill women. So you just keep her in front, and then you shoot your arrows and I'll die. So, in this way, Arjuna got permission and the blessing of Bhisma to kill him. Of course, he couldn't kill him. Bhisma was a Mahayogi also, besides being a Maharati. So he waited a long time before he died because he wanted the war to finish. He was knocked out on the 10th day of the war. And after that, everything degraded. Up until then, they were fighting according to Vedic principles. But as soon as Bhisma Pitamaha was out of the action, Duryodhana and the others just stopped following any rules. They broke all the rules, and it became a horrible massacre. So Bhisma Pitamaha waited, and he was riddled with hundreds of Arjuna's arrows. He was stuck to the ground. His body was off the ground. He was stuck to the ground by these arrows, and he didn't have any blood left, and his flesh was virtually completely gone, but he was still alive. He was just bones, but he's still alive because he was a Mahayogi. And his purpose was to wait till everything was finished and all the obsequies were finished and the funerals and everything. And Yudhisthira became confused. He refused to take the sovereign position as king. Even Krishna couldn't convince him. That's Krishna's Leela. He wanted Yudhisthira to be instructed by Bhisma Pitamaha, so that Bhisma, his sincere devotee, even though Bhisma was on the wrong side, he was still the devotee of Krishna, that Bhisma would be glorified forever. And finally they brought Yudhisthira in front of Bhisma Pitamaha when Bhisma had decided to leave his body. That was on Makara Sankranti day. And at that time he spoke the Vishnu Sahasranam Sutram. He taught that to Yudhisthira, and he explained to him Raja Dharma, how to become an ideal king. And he began his whole instruction with the preamble that this person standing here to my right Don't be fooled by him. He's walking among you as if he's a member of your family. You might think he's an ordinary person, but he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's the Adi Narayana, the original Narayana, from which everything comes, and he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You think he's Krishna, he's your cousin, or he's your friend, but no, he is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in order to be a king, this is the first thing you have to understand. Who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Because even the king is subordinate to God. Otherwise he cannot be a proper king. And he must follow the Vedic principles and the Vedic Dharma in order to be a genuine king. And previously Krishna came as Rama and demonstrated Raja Dharma by establishing Ram Raja, the ideal kingdom with a perfect devotee king, in which all the citizens were satisfied because he treated them all as a father, not as simply a sovereign ruler. And he himself was the example of what he was teaching. He lived very austerely, just like a yogi, even though he was the king. And he always remained faithful to his wife Sita. She always remained faithful to him. And so many lessons were learned in the example of Rama. So now we fast forward to Yudhisthira agrees, is convinced by Bhisma Pitama that he'll take the position of the king. And that was the whole purpose of the war. It was to reestablish a saintly kingdom. Because Duryodhana, although he had many good qualities, because of his enviousness of the Pandavas, committed some great sinful activity, and he was misleading people due to his enviousness of the Pandavas. So here it says, abandoning all attachment to the results of activities, ever satisfied and independent, the devotee performs no fruitive actions, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings. So this freedom from the bondage of actions is possible only in Krishna consciousness. When one is doing everything for Krishna, as we explained before, a Krishna conscious person acts out of pure love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he has no attraction for the results of the action. He is not even attached to his personal maintenance, for everything is left to Krishna, nor is he anxious to secure things, nor to protect things already in his possession. He does his duty to the best of his ability and leaves everything to Krishna. Such an unattached person is always free from the resultant reactions of good and bad. It is as though he were not doing anything. This is the sign of akarma, or actions without fruitive reactions. Any other action, therefore, devoid of Krishna consciousness is binding upon the worker, and that is the real aspect of vikarma, as explained henceforth, before. In other words, vikarma means actions against the Vedic instructions. Karma means actions according to the Vedic instructions, but with attachment to the results. And akarma means actions according to the Vedic instructions, but without attachment to the result, offering the result to Krishna. And therefore one is liberated by akarma, not by karma, and not by, of course, not by vikarma. So in the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, this is further explained, where it says, Tani sarvami samyamya yukta asita matpara vasahi yasyanindriyani tasya prajna pratistita. One who restrains his senses and keeps them under full control and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence. Now, how can you keep your senses fully under control and fix the consciousness upon Krishna? Well, this is exemplified in the life of Maharaj Ambarish. Now, he was not a great yogi, he was not a pandit. He didn't perform. He didn't do any great austerities. He was just a good devotee. He was a pure devotee of Krishna. So when he was molested and seriously, there was a serious attempt by Durvasa Muni to harm him, he didn't even try and protect himself. But because of his pure-heartedness, Krishna protected him. And through his Sudarshan Chakra at Durvasa Muni. Now Durvasa Muni was a perfect Siddha yogi. He had mastered most, if not all, the Siddhas. cities. So he was able to go see Lord Brahma to ask him for help to stop the Sudarsana Chakra. Brahma said, I can't do anything. It's Lord Vishnu's Sudarsana Chakra. So he went to Lord Vishnu to ask him. Durvasa Muni is a partial expansion of Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva said, I can't do anything. It's Lord Vishnu's chakra. So he went to see Lord Vishnu in the spiritual world. That's how powerful he was. Well, there's a spiritual world called Vaikuntha, beyond the causal ocean, the Karana Sindhu. But there's also a spiritual planet in the material world. In the middle of the ocean of milk, there's an island called Svetadvip, which is the planet where Kshirodakshayi Vishnu is present. Now, this Kshirodakshayi Vishnu came to this world as Balaji. That's who Balaji actually is. And he has a planet in the middle of the ocean of milk. So, Durvasa, and usually Devas cannot go beyond the border of the ocean. I mean, they can't go across the ocean to Svetadvip. Only a liberated person can. But Durvasa, when he was able to do it, that's how powerful he was. Right? And when he saw Lord Vishnu, he said, please help me, your chakra is chasing me. And the Lord said, I can't do anything. He said, you can't do anything? It's yours. You're the one that threw it. He said, yes, but there's only one person who can stop it now. He said, well, who's that? He said, Ambarish Maharaj. So he was shocked. That's the person he was trying to kill. Why would Ambarish Maharaj want to release him? But Lord Vishnu said, I can't do anything. He's the only one that can stop it. So he went back to Ambarish Maharaj. Ambarish Maharaj, during that whole time that Durvasa Muni was going around the universe trying to get release, he fasted. And he prayed for Durvasa Muni. See, although he was not a great yogi, he was not a great pundit, he was a #1 devotee who had complete control of his senses, no selfish desires, only desires to please Krishna, and practical activity under the instruction of a bona fide guru, how to please Krishna. So, how did Maharaj Ambarish attain such perfection? Well, it's explained in Srimad Bhagavatam 9th canto, 4th chapter, 18th to 20th verse. Savaya manak Krishna padara vindayor vachamsi vaikuntu gunarnun varnane karo harer mandira marjana disu shutim chakarachyuta sat katodaye mukunda lingalaya darsane driso tadbritya gatra sparse niga sangamam, and so forth. It says that he fixed his mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, engaged his words in describing the abode of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the temple of the Lord, his ears in hearing the pastimes of the Lord, his eyes in seeing the form of the Lord, his body in touching the body of the devotee, his nostrils in smelling the flavor of the flowers offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, his tongue in tasting the tulasi leaves offered to him, his legs in traveling to the holy places where his temple is situated, his head in offering obeisances unto the Lord, and his desires in fulfilling the desires of the Lord. And all these qualifications made him fit to become a matpara devotee of the Lord. Matpara means that he's in relationship with the Lord with no other desire other than to please the Lord. So he became liberated just by engaging in the devotional service to the Lord with all his capacities. So the word matpara is most significant in this connection. How one can become matpara is described in the life of Maharaj Ambarish. Srila Baladev Vidyabhusana, a great scholar and acharya in the line of matpara, remarks, Mad Bhakti Prabhavena Sarvendriya Vijaya Purvika Svatma Drishti Sulabhiti Bhava. The senses can be completely controlled only by the strength of devotional service to Krishna. There you go. Or as Krishna says, Bhakti amam abhijananti yavan yaschasmi tatvato tatomam tatvato gyatva vishate tad anantaram. I can only be attained by pure devotional service. Or he also says, Bhaktya tvananyaya sakya aham evam ridu virjana Gyatam drashtam cha tatvena pravestam cha parantapa. I can only be achieved through devotional service, and through devotion you can see me as I am standing before you, Arjuna. Say. Gyatam drashtam cha tatvena pravestam cha parantapa. And know me in truth. Right? Or mat karma krim mat parano. Mad bhakta sangavarjita nirvairak sarvabhutesu yasamamiti pandava. It's only by engaging in my devotional service without any material desires, with spiritual desires to please the Lord, but no material selfish desires, and without any mental speculation, speculating, maybe like this, maybe like that. Maybe Krishna, if he likes milk, he'll also like Coca-Cola. No, there's no maybe. You know, if Krishna says, give me milk, he doesn't want Coca-Cola. But someone can speculate, oh, Coca-Cola tastes good. I like Coca-Cola. Maybe I'll offer it to Krishna and I'll drink it. No, he doesn't accept it. So we should not speculate at all. And then, being friendly to all living entities, not having any enemies, not becoming the enemy of our enemy. Right? Such a person comes back to Krishna by such pure devotional service. So, this is a great science, how to act without any reactions to one's activities. And by doing this, following the example of Maharaj Ambarish, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasovarjam rasapyasya param dristva nivartate. Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. So, attaining this higher taste, that is the crux of the issue. Unless we get that higher taste, we will not leave the lower taste. Now, how does one get that higher taste? Unless one is transcendentally situated, it's not possible to cease sense enjoyment. The process of restriction from sense enjoyment by rules and regulations is something like restricting a diseased person from certain types of delectable eatables. The patient, however, neither likes such restrictions nor loses his taste for the eatables. Similarly, sense restriction by some spiritual process like Ashtanga Yoga, in the matter of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, etc., is recommended for less intelligent persons who have no better knowledge. Not samadhi, but all the other things leading up to it. But one who has tasted the beauty of the Supreme Lord Krishna, just like our Anantahari Prabhu is helping us see how beautiful Radha and Krishna are, by dressing them so nicely and decorating them so nicely every day now. So it's a real feast for the eyes and the soul to see Krishna so nicely decorated. So, but one who has tasted the beauty of the Supreme Lord Krishna in the course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness no longer has a taste for dead material things. Therefore, restrictions are there for the less intelligent neophytes in the spiritual advancement of life. But such restrictions are only good until one actually has a taste for Krishna consciousness. When one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pale things. So here we are. This is a wonderful explanation. And how are we going to get that taste? By regularly associating with good devotees who will engage us in Krishna's service and striving to learn more and more, become more proficient in the arts of Krishna consciousness, singing, dancing, serving the deity directly, cooking for the deity, cleaning for the deity. All these art, everyone is an art. Making nice flower arrangements for the deity, sewing for the deity, taking care of the business of the temple for the deity, keeping the temple clean, growing flowers for the deity, making garlands. All these things will give a higher taste, param dristva. And by that higher taste, one ceases from the lower taste. One gets more pleasure out of chanting than talking nonsense. One gets more pleasure from hearing the class than from hearing the news. One gets more pleasure by seeing Krishna than going into some bar and seeing, I don't know who. or by watching television or whatever. So, but if we don't do this, yatato yapi konteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramatini haranti prasabam mana. If we don't do this, the senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. Therefore, we have to organize our day in such a way that, of course, there's work, there's maintaining the body, there's going to the store, buying things, taking care of the baby. Right? But we should still have time to come see the deity, if we can, listen to the class, chant our rounds, do some service, and then go home. We should have at least 2-3 hours for spiritual activity every day. Otherwise, we get overwhelmed by the material activity. We lose the attraction and taste for spiritual activity, and we just get caught in a trap. As they say in French, dodo, metro, boulot, metro, dodo, which means you sleep, you wake up, you take the train to work, you take the train back, you eat, you go to sleep, and you just repeat that every day. So it's pretty boring life. There's no real excitement other than taking drugs or whatever, doing nonsense, but nothing uplifting, let's put it like that. So there are many great yogis, even Vishwamrita Muni, who was a fabulous yogi, but he also fell down because of the enticement of Menaka. And he was endeavoring for sense control with severe types of penance and yoga practice. And there's many other examples in history of the world like that. So it's very difficult to control the mind and the senses without being fully Krishna conscious, as Maharaj Ambarish was. So without engaging the mind in Krishna, one cannot cease such material engagements. Even Yamunacharya, who was a great saint and devotee and one of the Alvars, he said, Yad avadi mama cheta Krishna padara vinde. Since my mind has been engaged in the service of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, I have been enjoying an ever new transcendental humor or taste. And whenever I think of sex life with a woman, my face at once turns from it and I spit at the thought. Bhavati mukha vikara shustu nistivanam cha. So, now he's an Alvar, one of the top saints in Tamil Nadu and Vaishnavism. Obviously he's a top saint. Prabhupada is quoting him here. And he's explaining, because of this higher taste, he completely ignores the lower taste. Not interested in it at all. It's not attractive. Of course, everyone in material is attracted by that lower taste. He's not attracted because he's got this higher taste. See? Since my mind has been engaged in the service of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, and I have been enjoying an ever new transcendental humor. Ever new. In other words, every day there's something new we can learn in Krishna consciousness and get better and better at serving the Lord, and freer. So, therefore, the senses can be completely controlled only by the strength of devotional service to Krishna. Also, there's an example of fire. As a blazing fire burns everything within a room, Lord Vishnu, situated in the heart of the yogi, burns up all kinds of impurities, if we let him. If we don't bother him with material demands, but pray to him. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. This is the perfect mantra, the perfect prayer. That's why it's called Maha Mantra. One is not asking for anything material. One is saying, please, my Lord, protect me so I can always continue to serve you in this world in spite of all obstacles. So you keep repeating that enough, you don't think the Lord's going to help you? Of course he is. So the Yoga Sutra has also prescribed meditation on Vishnu and not meditation on the void. The so-called yogis who meditate on something other than Vishnu simply waste their time in a vain search for some phantasmagoria, some akash pushpa, some flower growing in the sky. We have to be Krishna conscious, devoted to the personality of Godhead. This is the aim of real yoga. Okay. So, therefore, one can attain freedom from the bondage of actions. But it's only possible in Krishna consciousness when one does everything for the pleasure of the Lord. And a devotee acts out of pure love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, is not interested in the reactions or the results of his work. He's not even attached, as it says, to personal maintenance. Of course, when you're a sannyasi, you can be like that. When you're a grihastha, you have to take care of certain minimum maintenance for the family. You can't, and that has to be a mutually agreed minimum with husband and wife, based on the number of children and so forth. But one does not try to artificially inflate their needs. One tries to restrict their needs to the minimum to keep body and soul together and raise the children properly, educate them. So it's a discussion and a mutual agreement. But the purpose is to have time, to have real time to engage in spiritual activities. As you do all your material duties and you satisfy them, but at the same time you have time for your spiritual duties also. That's why you have to decide what is a respectable minimum in which one will not be pinched all the time. But you can only decide on that if you're striving to control the senses and the mind. If the senses and mind are out of control, there's no minimum and there's no maximum. One is running around like a chicken with its head cut off, looking for every type of sense gratification. But if one is actually chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare, one is associating directly with Krishna by chanting sincerely. And then Krishna from within will help. He'll make a temple like this, and somehow you live near it, and you can come very easily anytime you want. And there's always prasadam, there's always beautiful deities, there's always Bhagavad Gita. It's all going on. There's kirtan, there's a school for your kids, there's Sunday school also, and there's so many activities going on, festivals. So he makes it easy if you want it. And if you don't want it, then you get stuck. So one endeavors to the best of his ability, but he leaves the result to Krishna. So many devotees can see the helping hand of Krishna in a mysterious way in their life when they purify themselves of all these material desires and just really reorient their mind toward pleasing Radha and Krishna. They actually see the Lord helping them. But you have to patiently see those things. That reinforces your faith in Krishna consciousness. So nirasir yatachitatma tyakva sarva parigraha sariram kevalam karma kurvan apnoti kilvasam. 4th chapter, 21st verse. Such a person who has this understanding that, yes, I'm going to control my mind, I'm going to control my senses, not in an artificial way by sitting down and meditating, but by a proactive way, by engaging my mind and my senses and my intelligence and my words and my body and my senses in Krishna's service. 24 hours a day. Even going to work, that's also serving Krishna. Because you go to work, you work honestly, and you bring home money. And the money, some of it you donate to the temple, some of it you put aside in savings, some of it you maintain the family, educate the kids, and so forth. You have a balanced life. Very balanced life. And the Lord will make it easy so you can do that. Okay, so such a man who has this understanding and practical experience acts with the mind and intelligence perfectly controlled. In order to do all these things, one must have a controlled mind and intelligence. It can't be running wild. And gives up all sense of proprietorship of his possessions. He thinks, look, everything I have is given to me by Krishna. It belongs to Krishna. Therefore, I'll only take what I need as a minimum, and the rest I'll use in Krishna's service. I shouldn't be afraid. The birds are not afraid. Every day they go out, they look for something to eat. They always find something, even in the wintertime. They're not falling down dead, starving to death. You know, the elephants find something. The fish find something. You don't think I'll find something also? if I just remain honest and work sincerely and depend on the Lord? Of course. So, thus his work is not affected by any sinful reactions. So a Krishna-conscious person does not expect good or bad results in his activities. His mind and intelligence are fully controlled. He knows that because he's part and parcel of the Supreme, the part played by him as a part and parcel of the whole is not his own activity, but is only being done through him by the Supreme. When the hand moves, it does not move out of its own accord, but by the endeavor of the whole body. So a Krishna-conscious person is always dovetailed with the supreme desire, for he has no desire for personal sense gratification. He moves exactly like the part of a machine. As a machine part requires oiling and cleaning for maintenance, so a Krishna-conscious person maintains himself by his work just to remain fit for action in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. He is therefore immune to all reactions of his endeavors. Like an animal, he has no proprietorship even over his own body. A cruel proprietor of an animal sometimes kills the animal in his possession, yet the animal does not protest, nor does it have any real independence. A Krishna-conscious person fully engaged in self-realization has very little time to falsely possess any material object. For maintaining body and soul, he does not require unfair means of accumulating money. He does not, therefore, become contaminated by such material sins. He is free from all reactions to his actions. So, now one cannot attain that position artificially or overnight. It takes time. And it requires a lot of good association and a lot of instruction from bona fide teachers, acharyas, or gurus. In this way, gradually one comes to this position. Therefore, we can call it a lifetime in preparation. Just like Srila Prabhupada prepared himself, and then he completely surrendered to the order and will of his guru and spread the movement all over the world. And fabulous success. You couldn't tell he was going to do it. If you had seen him in 1959, you'd say, how is he going to do that? All his godbrothers failed. How is he going to do it? He did it single-handedly, even without the help of his godbrothers. Right? Because he had received the blessing of his guru and Krishna. Krishna Shakti Vinahina Tara Pravartan. One who is empowered by Krishna and his guru can spread the glories all over the world. You know, Vacha Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Uttarapasta Vegam, Etan Vegam, Yo Vishahetadira, Sarvam Apimam, Prithivim Sasisyat. One who controls the words, mind, anger, the tongue, the stomach, and the genitals, they are free to go anywhere in the world and make devotees. And that's exactly what Prabhupada did. He came to, whereas his godbrothers went to England and Germany, they failed, he went to America, and then he went all over the world, and even to India, and spread this movement, spread the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So, we must follow the example of great devotees. Now, what does Krishna want us to do exactly? Well, this is explained in 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Ya idam paramam guyam mad bhakte sabidasyati bhaktin mai param kritva mam ivaisasya samsaya nasa tasman manusyesu kaschit me priyakritama bhavita nacha me tasmat anya priyataro bhuvi. He says, for one who explains the supreme secret to the devotees, pure devotional service is guaranteed, and at the end he will come back to me. So, generally it's advised that Bhagavad Gita should be discussed amongst devotees. Only for those who are not devotees will understand neither Krishna nor the Bhagavad Gita. So those who do not accept Krishna as he is and Bhagavad Gita as he is should not try to explain Bhagavad Gita whimsically and become offenders. Bhagavad Gita should be explained to persons who are ready to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is a subject matter for the devotees only and not for philosophical speculators. Anyone, however, who tries sincerely to present Bhagavad Gita as it is, will advance in devotional service and reach the pure devotional state of life. As a result of such pure devotion, he's sure to go back home, back to Godhead. Nachitasman manusyeshu kaschit me priyakritama bhavita nachame tasmat anya priyataro bhuve. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he meaning the person who dedicates his or her life to explaining Bhagavad Gita, nor will there ever be one more dear. So now we know exactly what Krishna wants us to do. He wants us to practice Krishna consciousness seriously, and then explain it and teach others by our own example and train them in Bhagavad Gita and chanting Hare Krishna and everything Prabhupada has taught us. This is what we're preparing ourselves for, to be able to do that. And then Sanjaya says, Adyeshtate cha ya imam dharmam samvadam avayu Jnana yagena tenaham ishta sham itime mati. And I declare, this is Krishna speaking, and I declare that he who studies the sacred conversation of ours worships me by his intelligence. So this is the best use of our intelligence. Studying Bhagavad Gita, hearing it, discussing it, preaching it, and so forth. Because we worship Krishna with our intelligence when we do this. And then Shadavam anasuyascha srinuyad apiyo nara sopi mukta subal lokan prapunuyat punya karmanam. And one who listens with faith and without envy becomes free from sinful reactions and attains to the auspicious planets where the pious dwell. So if you listen regularly to the Bhagavad Gita, you live with the pious and you perform punya karmanam. Punya karma. Yeah, you'll end up spending most of your time, free time, in the temple, if not all your free time. I spend all my free time in the temple. I don't have any other social life. And you'll be associating with saintly people. And you'll be engaging in saintly activities. Prapunuyat punya karmanam. One attains the association of the pious. So that's what the temple is for. It's to create this association of all rightfully situated devotees. They inspire each other. Matchita matgita pranak bodhyantas parasparam katyantas chamam nityam tusyanticha ramanticha. When devotees see each other, they inspire each other by speaking and remembering the pastimes of the Lord, and they inspire each other to engage in devotional service and follow the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. It's just a wonderful process. And once one becomes convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he's living in the heart of every living entity, one becomes fully devoted to the service of the Lord, and one derives great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about Krishna. So, etam vibhutim yogam cha mama yoveti tatvata so vikalpena yogena yujite natra samsayaha. One who is factually convinced of Krishna's opulence and mystic power engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this there is no doubt. So Prabhupada says that the highest summit of spiritual knowledge is knowing the Supreme Personality Godhead, Sri Krishna. And unless one is firmly situated or convinced of the different opulences of the Supreme Lord, he cannot engage in devotional service. Generally, people know that God is great, but they do not know in detail how God is great. That's what Bhagavad Gita is meant for, to learn how Krishna is so great, not just that he's great. Jai. Shishirada Nilmadava ki jai. Yeah, people say Allahu Akbar, but how is Allah? Akbar. That's what we're learning by reading Bhagavad Gita, getting all the specific information, how he is so great. Master of all mysticism and master of all opulence. Here are the details. If one knows factually how God is great, then naturally he becomes a surrendered soul and engages himself in a devotional service of the Lord. When one factually knows the opulences of the Supreme, there's no alternative but to surrender to him. This factual knowledge can be known from the descriptions in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and similar literatures. Okay, so we'll stop right there. Are there any questions anyone wants to ask? Yes.
So, what is the key to consistency in Krishna consciousness?
Key to?
Consistency.
Consistency. Yeah.
One day, I end up feeling very Krishna conscious. Another day, I don't feel Krishna conscious at all.
Well, it's just like a person who's diabetic, severely diabetic. Unless they get their insulin shot, they go down. So you have to get your inoculation of inspiration every day by following the morning program and evening program. If you can't do both, at least one of them. In the case of Grihastas, usually it should be the evening program at least. You come to the whole program every night because we have arti, we chant Hare Krishna, then we read Bhagavad Gita and discuss it, then we have prasadam. So now you're Krishnized. You get your daily inoculation, like the diabetic. He doesn't get his insulin every day. He goes down. He has to go to the hospital and get balanced again. So we get unbalanced by not getting our Krishna Katha and not chanting nice rounds. So we come to the temple to fix up all the loose nuts and screws in the brain and the intelligence by hearing and chanting and associating, seeing the beauty of the deity, and then saying, look, I want to do like Anantahari. I want to be able to dress Krishna like that. I want to be able to give class like that. I want to also chant nicely. I want to also dress nicely. I don't know why. What is this pants and shirt? This is nonsense. This is Sudra dress. I want to dress, dhoti, kurta. At least once a day I should be dressed like this. It changes the way you look at the world. Right? This pant and shirt, that's Sudras dressed like that. The British started that. All the men, they dress in pants and shirt. They look like idiots walking around. They look like a scarecrow. This dhoti, kurta, tilak, very important. And mala and having a japa and everything. It's all very, very, very. Every little detail is important. At least once a day we should do it. If it's not in the morning, then at least at night. If you live in a temple, it's twice a day, morning and evening. You should attend the whole program. So you get your dose, you get Krishnized once a day, then you can make it. But you start missing that dose of Krishna consciousness, and you're like on a seesaw. One day you're up, next day you're down. That's the answer. Does it make sense?
There's equal amount of the non-Krishna information also being fed into me every day, so that I really need this dose every day to kind of wipe out all that non-Krishna.
Well, you have to make an arrangement. You did. You already moved near the temple, right?
Sure.
So you didn't move near the temple to stay at home every night. You should make a vow. Every night I'm going to come to the temple, I'll see the arti, I'll chant, I'll dance a little bit, and then if I have an extra few rounds, I'll finish them, then I'll listen to the class, and then I keep my eyes fixed on how beautiful Krishna is. I'll encourage Anantahari to keep dressing the deities. In fact, I'll help him. I'll help put away the jewelry also, whatever. And I will take some prasadam, and I'll go home and take rest as early as possible. So the next morning I can wake up, chant my rounds, and get to work on time, do my work really well, so that I can come to the temple at night and take part in the arti. You don't have any time for nonsense like that. You're busy all day long.
I mean, I don't know if I can ask this question, but when Srila Prabhupada was in New York, he was the only devotee. How was he able to get the Krishna consciousness? I mean, he didn't have association. How was he able to do that?
No, he did have association. What are you talking about? He was associating with his guru by following his instructions. That's association. Just like we're associating with Krishna right now by hearing his Bhagavad Gita. And we're associating with Krishna by chanting his Mahamantra. You can't say he didn't have any association. And not just the book. It's not simply the book. It's following the instructions of the guru. Like if your father told you, my dear son, I'm going to die, but you must promise me today that every day you'll go to the Hare Krishna temple and take part in the arti. So if your father told you that and you did it, and you do it, then you're associating with your father. You're saying, my father told me to do this and I'm doing it. See? He didn't tell you, go to the casino and gamble every night and drink and smoke. No. So if he told you, come to the temple every day and see the deity, you do that, you're associating with your father. You're following his instructions. Did he ever tell you to do something? No. Okay, well, he missed his opportunity. But you will tell your child,
yes, I want to.
If you love me, then you will go to the Sunday school, go to the synergy school, chant with the kids every day, and see the arti, and take prasadam, and your whole life should be around the deity. If you love me, you will do this for me.
Looking at the kids, one of the teachers was started chanting.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
When all these girls come to my home to see my baby,
yeah,
they're all standing around with me and singing Nashing Arti.
Haribol.
I mean, like, my grandmother is surprised. We don't see this in India. I mean, all these kids come and sing Nashing Arti around my baby.
So, Prabhu, I have one question.
Yeah.
So, Bodhayanti Parasparam Pushyan Chicha Ramaticha. So, people come from the lecture, they go down, and then it is not Bodhayanti Parasparam about Krishna. They just talk about any topic.
Which people?
Including me, everybody.
Well, okay, but you have to make a decision in your life how you're going to use every minute. There's one thing that's worth more than all the gold in the world. It's called time, right? We're all allotted just a certain amount of time in life, and we don't know how long it is. I could die tomorrow. I don't know. So if we use our time correctly, it's not our enemy. And if we misuse it, it's our enemy. So if death comes suddenly, we'll say, oh, no, I don't want to die. I'm not ready to die. And you die like that, right? So, you're not thinking of Krishna. You say, I want to live some more. I want to have more sense gratification. Oh, you're finished. You're fried. But if you've used every minute in Krishna's service, in a moment of death, you're thinking of Krishna, Krishna, please take me. Whatever you want to do with me, you can do. I'm completely surrendered to you. I have no other desire in my heart. That's because you used every minute correctly. So time did not become your enemy, it became your friend. Right? So that's the only... You can't buy 1 second of time once it's passed. Therefore, there's no price you can put on it. It's so precious. There's no price. You couldn't, even if you had $10 billion, and you say, give me back 1 second. You can't get it. All the money in the world cannot even buy 1 second of time. Right? Therefore, we should use properly the one commodity we have that's worth more than all the money in the world. Every minute we waste, we're losing hundreds and billions, more than hundreds and billions of dollars, because it can't buy it back. So the symptom of the devotee is they use every second to the maximum in Krishna's service. Thinking of Krishna, learning something new, memorizing something, making a plan, organizing their schedule, whatever, just to serve the Lord. Then they get very excited. Life is exciting like that. Hare Krishna, glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
higher taste ki jai.
Hi.
What was the Sanskrit word for